If you've ever wondered how far betrayal can push someone, you're about to find out. This story will leave you speechless. If you enjoy these intense real-life stories, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps us bring you more content like this. My name is Marcus, and I'm about to tell you how discovering my wife's affair led me to execute the most calculated revenge in my 38 years of life. It was a Tuesday evening in March 2023 when I came home early from my job at the accounting firm in downtown Chicago. Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway, which was odd since she usually got home from her marketing job by 5 p.m. I figured she was running errands or grabbing dinner with her sister. I walked into our suburban home, the same house we'd bought 5 years ago when we thought we were building our forever life together. Everything seemed normal until I headed upstairs to change out of my work clothes. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of our bedroom door closing, followed by hushed voices and other sounds I recognized all too well. My blood turned to ice. Sarah was supposed to be at work. I was supposed to be at work. But here I was, standing in my own hallway, listening to my wife of 7 years with another man in our bed. I could have burst through that door. I could have confronted them right then and there. Instead, something cold and calculating took over. I quietly backed down the stairs, grabbed my keys, and left the house as silently as I'd entered. I sat in my car at the end of our street for 2 hours, watching. At 7:30 p.m., a black BMW pulled out of my driveway. I couldn't see the driver clearly, but I memorized the license plate. Illinois tags, LMK 4891. Sarah's car pulled in 20 minutes later. She walked into our house like nothing had happened, probably assuming I was working late as usual. When I finally went inside at 9 p.m., she greeted me with a kiss on the cheek and asked about my day. The normalcy of it all made my stomach turn. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, stirring something on the stove. "Long," I said, watching her face for any sign of guilt. "Yours?" "Oh, the usual. Boring meetings, difficult clients." She turned back to the stove. "I got home a little late, had to stop by Mom's to help her with some computer issues." The lie rolled off her tongue so easily, it made me wonder how many others there had been. That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, planning my next move. But what I discovered over the following weeks would make my original suspicions seem like child's play. I became a detective in my own life. Over the next 2 weeks, I documented everything. I installed a hidden camera app on an old phone and placed it strategically in our bedroom. I tracked her location using the family plan on our phones. I even hired a private investigator, something I never thought I'd do in my entire life. What I discovered was worse than I'd imagined. Sarah wasn't just having an affair, she was having a full-blown relationship. His name was Derek Montgomery, 34, divorced, works in real estate. The private investigator, Janet Mills, presented me with photos, timeline records, and even credit card receipts. "They've been meeting 3 times a week for the past 4 months, Janet explained, sliding a manila folder across the table at the coffee shop where we met. Hotels, his apartment, and your house, my bed. The bed where Sarah and I had made love, where we'd talked about having children, where we'd comforted each other during difficult times. And there's more," Janet continued. "I found evidence of significant financial activity, cash withdrawals, expensive gifts, restaurant bills that don't match her stated whereabouts. She was spending our money on this relationship, money we'd been saving for the down payment on a bigger house, money from the joint account I worked 60-hour weeks to contribute to. But the detail that broke something inside me was what Janet told me next. Marcus, I need you to prepare yourself for this. They're not just meeting at your house when you're at work. Based on the timeline I've tracked, they've been there during your business trips, your weekend golf tournaments, even the night you stayed late for your company's Christmas party last December. The Christmas party. I remembered that night. I'd texted Sarah around 11 p.m. saying I'd be home late, that the partners were buying rounds and I needed to network. She'd responded with, "No problem, honey. Sleep tight when you get home. She'd been with him that night, in our bed. While I was working to advance my career for our future, she was destroying it. How long have you suspected? Janet asked gently. 2 weeks, I said, my voice hollow. But looking back now, God, there were so many signs. The new lingerie I thought she bought for me, the sudden interest in going to the gym, the way she'd shower immediately when she got home, claiming she felt gross from work. Janet nodded sympathetically. It's not your fault you trusted your wife. That's what marriage is supposed to be about. That night, I sat in my home office going through all the evidence, photos of them entering hotels, screenshots of romantic text messages the PI had somehow obtained, credit card statements showing purchases at stores I'd never been to, 7 years of marriage, and this is what it had come to. But as I sat there surrounded by the proof of my wife's betrayal, I realized something important. I wasn't just hurt. I was angry, furious, and I was going to make sure both of them understood exactly what they had done. I just had to figure out how. I didn't sleep for 3 days straight, but by Friday morning, I had a plan. It was elegant, it was devastating, and it was completely legal. The first part was simple: documentation. I needed irrefutable proof that would hold up in divorce court. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery still matters when it comes to asset division and spousal support. My lawyer, David Chen, had been very clear about that. If you can prove she used marital funds to support the affair, if you can show a pattern of deception that damaged the marriage, it absolutely impacts the settlement, he'd explained during our confidential consultation. The second part was more complex. I was going to catch them in the act, but not in the way they'd expect. I learned their pattern. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Derek would come over around 2 p.m., right after Sarah got home from her lunch meetings. They'd spend 2 hours together before he left, and she prepared for my arrival home. But this Thursday was going to be different. I called in sick to work, something I'd done maybe twice in my entire career. I told my boss I had food poisoning and would be out for the day. Then I drove to the mall and spent the morning shopping for my surprise. At Office Depot, I bought a portable scanner and a high-quality printer. At Best Buy, I purchased a small wireless camera with night vision and audio recording. At FedEx, I printed dozens of copies of the photos Janet had taken. The final stop was the most important one: a locksmith. I need to change all the locks on my house, I told the technician. Today, this afternoon, before 5 p.m. Emergency lockout? He asked. Something like that, I replied. By 1:30 p.m. I was parked 3 blocks away from my house, watching Derek's black BMW pull into my driveway. Right on schedule. I waited 30 minutes, long enough for them to get comfortable. Then I put my plan into motion. The new wireless camera was small enough to slip under the bedroom door, providing a live feed to my phone. What I saw confirmed everything Janet had told me, and worse. They weren't just having sex in my bed. They were acting like a couple, comfortable, intimate, talking about future plans. When Marcus is at that conference next month, we could go to that bed and breakfast in Wisconsin, I heard Derek say through my phone's speaker. That sounds perfect, Sarah replied. I told him I was going to visit my sister that weekend anyway. Another lie. Her sister lived in California. Sarah had never mentioned visiting her. At 4:00 p.m. exactly, I put the final phase of my plan into action. But what happened next would change all of our lives forever. I parked in my own driveway right behind Derek's BMW, effectively trapping his car. Then I called a locksmith from a different company, one that specialized in emergency lockouts. I'm locked out of my house, I told them. My wife changed the locks and won't let me in. I have documentation proving I own the house. It wasn't technically true, but it wasn't technically false either. I did own the house, and Sarah couldn't let me in because she had no idea I was there. While I waited for the locksmith, I began phase 2. I took out the photos Janet had provided, dozens of them, showing Sarah and Derek at restaurants, hotels, entering and leaving my house, and I started placing them everywhere, on Derek's windshield, under his windshield wipers, on his door handles. I even slipped some under the doormat where they'd have to step on them to leave the house. The locksmith arrived at 4:45 p.m. "Sir, are you sure about this?" he asked, looking at the documentation I'd provided. "This seems like it might be a domestic situation." "It absolutely is," I said calmly, "and I have every legal right to enter my own home." As the locksmith worked on the front door, I could see curtains moving in the upstairs bedroom window. They knew something was happening, but they couldn't figure out what. The lock clicked open at 4:52 p.m. I thanked the locksmith, paid him in cash, and waited for him to drive away. Then I walked into my own house and called out in my normal, everyday voice, "Honey, I'm home early, feeling much better." The panic that followed was immediate and audible. Frantic whispering, hurried footsteps, the sound of someone trying to get dressed quickly. I walked calmly to the kitchen and started making coffee, as if nothing unusual was happening. At 5:15 p.m., Sarah came downstairs wearing a bathrobe, her hair disheveled. "Marcus, I thought you were sick." "I was, but I'm feeling better now. Thought I'd surprise you." I looked at her carefully. "You look flustered. Everything okay?" "Oh, I was just taking a nap. You startled me." "A nap? That's unusual for you." I poured myself a cup of coffee. "By the way, whose BMW is that in our driveway?" The color drained from her face. That's when we heard the front door open, and Derek Montgomery walked into my kitchen like he owned the place. "Oh, shit," Derek said when he saw me standing in my own kitchen. Sarah's face went from pale to completely white. For a moment, nobody spoke. The only sound was the coffee maker finishing its cycle. "You must be Derek," I said calmly, extending my hand for a handshake. "I've heard so much about you." He didn't take my hand. Instead, he looked between Sarah and me like a trapped animal. "Marcus, I can explain," Sarah started. "I'm sure you can," I said, still in that eerily calm voice that was scaring even me. "But first, Derek, I believe you have something that belongs to me." "What?" he stammered. "Your car keys. See, your BMW is parked behind my car in my driveway, and I can't get out. But here's the interesting thing. You can't get out either." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a remote control. "I had all the locks changed today. This is the only way to open the front door from the inside now." Sarah's eyes widened. "Marcus, what are you doing?" "What am I doing?" I laughed, and it didn't sound like my normal laugh at all. "Sarah, I'm giving you and your boyfriend exactly what you've been giving me for the past 4 months. I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a manila envelope I'd prepared earlier. "Derek, this contains photos of you and my wife taken over the past 2 weeks, entering hotels, leaving my house, using my money at restaurants." I slid the envelope across the counter. "Sarah, this contains copies of credit card statements showing purchases you've made for your affair, all from our joint account." Derek opened his envelope first. His face went from confused to horrified as he flipped through the photographs. When did you... Sarah's voice trailed off as she looked through her papers. "Professional private investigator," I said matter-of-factly. "Highly recommend Janet Mills if either of you ever need her services in the future." Derek suddenly straightened up, his fear replaced by anger. "Look, man, I didn't know she was married when this started." Sarah's head snapped toward him. "What? I mean, not at first." Derek backtracked quickly. "She told me she was divorced." "You lying piece of..." Sarah started. "Actually," I interrupted, "this is fascinating. Please continue, Derek. What did my wife tell you about me?" Derek looked between us, realizing he'd made a terrible mistake. She said you were separated, that you were just living together until the divorce was finalized because of financial reasons." Sarah's mouth fell open. "I never said that." "You absolutely did. That night at Morton's when you paid for dinner with cash, you said your ex-husband was a controlling accountant who monitored all your spending." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Controlling accountant, huh? The room fell silent except for the sound of my coffee maker's final gurgle. But what Derek said next would reveal just how deep this betrayal really went. "Sarah, you told me he didn't even sleep in the same bedroom anymore," Derek continued, apparently deciding that honesty was his best option now. "You said he worked all the time and ignored you, that the marriage had been over for years." I looked at my wife, really looked at her. Is that what you told him? Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind you cry when you're sorry, the kind you cry when you're caught. Marcus, please, let me explain. No, I said quietly. Let Derek explain. This is fascinating. What else did my wife tell you about our terrible marriage? Derek glanced between us, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. She said you were probably having an affair, too, with someone at work. That hit me like a physical blow. What? She said you'd been staying late more often, working weekends, and that she suspected you were cheating with your assistant. I stared at Sarah in disbelief. Jennifer, my 55-year-old assistant who's been married for 30 years and talks about her grandchildren constantly? Sarah couldn't meet my eyes. But wait, there's more, Derek continued, seemingly unable to stop himself now. She said you two were planning to divorce anyway, and that she was just waiting for the right time to leave. When? I asked. When was this right time going to be? Derek looked at Sarah, who remained silent. She said after you got your promotion. She wanted to make sure she'd get a good settlement. The promotion. I'd been working toward making partner at the firm for 3 years. The long hours, the weekend work, the stress that had been slowly killing me. It was all for us, for our future. But Sarah had been planning to leave me the moment I achieved it. She hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been strategically planning to destroy me. How long? I asked her directly. How long have you been planning to divorce me? Marcus, it's not like that. How long? I shouted, and both of them jumped. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years. We'd celebrated our 5th anniversary 18 months ago. She'd given me a watch engraved with, "To my forever love." We'd renewed our vows last summer at her suggestion. We'd been talking about starting a family just 6 months ago. All lies, all elaborate, calculated lies. Get out, I said quietly. Marcus, please, Sarah started. Both of you, get out of my house right now. Derek moved toward the door, but I held up the remote. Actually, Derek, you're not going anywhere until we settle something. He froze. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It was a recording app, and it had been running the entire time. I've recorded this entire conversation. Your admission that you knew Sarah was married, her lies about our marriage, your participation in using our joint funds for your affair. I looked directly at him. See, Derek, I'm an accountant. I'm very good with numbers and documentation. His face went pale again. What do you want? I want you to pay me back every dollar Sarah spent on you using our joint account. I have the receipts, hotel rooms, dinners, gifts. The total comes to $12,147. I don't have that kind of money, he protested. Then I guess you're going to have to figure it out, aren't you? But what I said next would ensure that this was just the beginning of their problems. Here's what's going to happen, I said, setting my phone on the counter where they both could see it was still recording. Derek, you're going to write me a check for $12,147 today, right now. I told you I don't have that money, Derek protested. Then you're going to get it. Sell your car, borrow it from family, I don't care. But you're going to pay back every penny Sarah stole from our marriage to fund your affair. I turned to Sarah. And you, dear wife, are going to move out of this house by Sunday. I'm filing for divorce on Monday morning. Marcus, please, we can work this out. Work this out? I laughed bitterly. Sarah, you've been planning to divorce me for 2 years. You've been lying to me, stealing from me, and cheating on me. You told your boyfriend that I was the problem, that I was controlling and neglectful. There's nothing to work out. Derek pulled out his phone. Look, I can transfer some money from my savings right now, but I don't have 12 grand. How much do you have? He checked his banking app. I can transfer about 4,000. Do it! Derek's hands were shaking as he initiated the transfer to my account. This is everything I have, he said. That's a start. You have 30 days to get me the rest, or I'm taking legal action. Sarah finally found her voice. Marcus, you can't just throw me out. I live here too. Actually, I can. I pulled out another piece of paper from my stack of prepared documents. The house is in my name only. We bought it before we were married, and you never got added to the deed. Legally, you're just a tenant, and I'm giving you notice. This was true. When we bought the house, Sarah's credit was poor due to some college loan issues, so everything went through me. We'd always meant to add her name later, but somehow never got around to it. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, tears streaming down her face now. "That's not my problem anymore. Maybe Derek has a spare room." Derek immediately looked uncomfortable. "Actually, I live in a studio apartment. It's barely big enough for one person." Sarah turned to stare at him. "You told me you had a 2-bedroom condo." I was going to upgrade soon." Another lie. These two had been lying to each other as much as they'd been lying to me. "This is perfect," I said. "You two deserve each other." I walked to the front door and used my remote to unlock it. "Derek, you can leave now. Sarah, you have until Sunday to pack your things." Derek practically ran for the door, but I stopped him one more time. "Oh, and Derek, if you contact Sarah again, if you try to continue this relationship, I'm sending copies of our recorded conversation to your employer, your ex-wife, and every real estate client you've worked with in the past year." He nodded frantically and disappeared out the door. Sarah stood in my kitchen, still in her bathrobe, looking completely lost. "Marcus, I know I made mistakes, but—" "Mistakes?" I interrupted. "Sarah, a mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or saying something hurtful in an argument. What you did was plan and execute a systematic betrayal of our entire marriage. I never meant for it to happen this way." "Yes, you did. You told Derek you were waiting until I got my promotion to leave me. You've been planning this for 2 years. She had no response to that, but what happened over the next 3 days would prove that my revenge was just getting started. Sarah didn't leave on Sunday. When I came home from my weekend at a hotel, I found her still there, sitting at our kitchen table with a suitcase beside her. "I have nowhere to go," she said when I walked in. "That's not my problem." "Marcus, please. I know what I did was wrong, but I'm still your wife. We took vows." The audacity of her invoking our marriage vows after everything she'd done almost made me laugh. "You broke those vows months ago, Sarah. Can't we at least try counseling? Maybe there's a way to—" "No." I set down my overnight bag and looked at her directly. "I've already filed for divorce. The papers are being served tomorrow." Her face crumpled. "How can you be so cold?" "Cold?" I sat down across from her. "Sarah, do you want to know what cold is? Cold is coming home early to surprise your wife and instead hearing her with another man in your bed. Cold is finding out that your wife has been lying to you for 2 years about wanting to be married to you." "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "You never started loving me. If you had loved me, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Derek. "I can get you another 3K by Wednesday, working on the rest." I showed Sarah the message. "Your boyfriend is paying me back the money you stole." "I didn't steal anything. That was our joint account, which you used to fund an affair. That's considered dissipation of marital assets in Illinois. My lawyer was very clear about that." Sarah stared at the text message. "He's really paying you back? Why wouldn't he? You two bankrupted his savings account for your little relationship." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" I realized Sarah didn't know about Derek's financial situation. "He transferred his entire savings to me on Thursday. $4,000. That was everything he had." "That's impossible. He took me to Morton's last month. He paid for that weekend in Milwaukee. He bought me that necklace for Valentine's Day." "With what money, Sarah?" I could see her working through the math in her head, and her expression changed as she realized what I was implying. "He put it all on credit cards, didn't he?" she said quietly. "I would guess so. Probably maxed them out trying to impress you." Sarah put her head in her hands. "Oh God, what have I done?" "You destroyed 3 lives," I said simply. "Yours, mine, and Derek's. He really lives in a studio apartment?" "According to him, yes. But he said he showed me pictures of this beautiful condo, probably pictures he found online." "Sarah, the man lied to you about everything, just like you lied to me about everything." She sat there in silence for several minutes, and I could see her entire world reshaping itself as she processed the reality of her situation. "I don't know what to do," she finally said. "You figure it out, but you do it somewhere else." That's when my phone rang. The caller ID made my blood run cold. "Marcus Morrison," the voice on the phone asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Detective Lisa Rodriguez with the Chicago Police Department. I need to speak with you about Derek Montgomery." Sarah's head snapped up from where she'd been sitting in defeat. "What about Derek?" I asked. "Is it possible for you to come to the station? I'd prefer to discuss this in person." "Am I in some kind of trouble?" "No, sir, you're not in trouble. But there's been a development in a case we're working, and your name came up in connection with Mr. Montgomery." An hour later, I was sitting in a sterile police interview room, wondering how my simple revenge plan had led me here. Detective Rodriguez was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes but a serious demeanor. "Mr. Morrison, what can you tell me about Derek Montgomery's relationship with your wife?" I told her everything: the affair, the money, the confrontation, even Derek's financial situation. "When was the last time you spoke to him?" she asked. "He texted me yesterday about making a payment. Why? What's this about?" Detective Rodriguez consulted her notes. "Derek Montgomery was arrested this morning for credit card fraud, specifically for using stolen credit card information to make purchases over the past 6 months. My stomach dropped. Stolen credit cards. "We believe he's been running a scheme where he accesses credit information through his real estate work and uses it to fund a lifestyle he can't afford. The investigation started when one of his clients noticed unauthorized charges and traced them back to restaurants and hotels that Mr. Montgomery had visited." "With my wife," I said quietly. "Apparently, yes. The charges we've tracked include several expensive dinners, hotel rooms, and jewelry purchases that match the timeline of their relationship." I felt sick. "Are you saying Sarah was an unknowing accomplice to credit card fraud?" "That's what we're trying to determine. The jewelry purchase is particularly concerning because it was made using a stolen card, but the jewelry was given to your wife. The Valentine's Day necklace," I realized. "Can you get her to come in and speak with us? We need to determine if she knew the source of Mr. Montgomery's spending money." When I got home, Sarah was still sitting at the kitchen table, but now she was crying. "The police want to talk to you," I said without preamble. "What?" She looked up with red, swollen eyes. "Derek was arrested for credit card fraud. All those expensive dates he took you on. He paid for them with stolen credit cards." Sarah's face went white. "That's impossible. The necklace he gave you for Valentine's Day was bought with a stolen card. You're in possession of stolen property." "Marcus, I swear to God I had no idea." "I believe you," I said, and I meant it. Sarah was many things: a liar, a cheat, a manipulator, but she wasn't a criminal. "But you need to talk to the police. If you cooperate, they might not charge you." "Charge me with what?" "Receiving stolen property, potentially conspiracy if they think you knew." Sarah broke down completely. "How did everything go so wrong? I never wanted any of this to happen." "What did you want to happen, Sarah, really?" She wiped her eyes with a tissue. "I wanted to feel appreciated again. I wanted someone to pay attention to me, to make me feel special." "So you decided to destroy our marriage instead of talking to me about it?" "You worked all the time, Marcus. When we did talk, it was about bills or schedules or your job. When was the last time you told me I was beautiful? When was the last time we went on a real date?" Her words hit me harder than I expected. There was truth in them, even if it didn't excuse what she'd done. "You're right," I said. "I did work too much. I did take you for granted. But Sarah, the solution to feeling unappreciated isn't to have an affair with a criminal who's stealing other people's money to impress you." "I know," she whispered. "I know that now." We sat in silence for a moment, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than anger toward my wife. Not forgiveness. That was still impossible, but maybe understanding. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you call the police and tell them you'll cooperate fully. You give them back the necklace and anything else Derek bought you, and then—" I paused. "Then we both try to figure out how to rebuild our lives." Ugh. But what Sarah told the police would reveal one final twist that no one saw coming. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office reviewing the final divorce papers when David Chen looked up from his desk with an expression I couldn't read. "Marcus, I just got off the phone with the prosecutor handling Derek Montgomery's case. There's something you need to know." "What now?" "Sarah's cooperation helped them uncover a much larger credit card fraud ring. Montgomery wasn't just stealing from his real estate clients. He was part of an organized operation that's been running for over 2 years. I leaned back in my chair. How organized? Organized enough that Sarah's testimony is going to help put away 6 other people, including Montgomery's ex-wife, who apparently was the one actually running the scheme. His ex-wife? Turns out the bitter divorce story Derek told Sarah was another lie. He and his ex-wife were never actually divorced. They were using the fake divorce story to run cons on women Derek would meet through his real estate work. The magnitude of what David was telling me slowly sank in. "Are you saying Sarah was being scammed?" "It looks that way. The expensive gifts, the fancy dinners, even the hotel rooms, all paid for with stolen money as part of a larger con. Derek's job was to find wealthy married women and make them fall in love with him. But Sarah wasn't wealthy." "No, but you were a good target. Stable job, joint bank accounts, and based on Derek's testimony, you were supposed to be the real Mark." "What do you mean?" David consulted his notes. "According to Derek's statement, Sarah was supposed to clean out your joint accounts and disappear with him. When she didn't, he got frustrated and started taking bigger risks with the credit card fraud. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Sarah was supposed to rob me? That was the plan. But apparently, she actually did have feelings for Derek, and when he pressured her to take your money and run, she refused. That's when their relationship started falling apart." I thought back to the confrontation in my kitchen, to Derek's obvious discomfort when Sarah suggested future plans together. It hadn't been fear of being caught in an affair. It had been fear of his con falling apart. "Where does this leave the divorce?" I asked. "That's up to you. Sarah's cooperation with the police has been valuable enough that she's getting immunity from prosecution. And Marcus, there's one more thing." "What?" "Sarah asked me to give you this." He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Sarah's handwriting. Inside was a letter, not typed, but handwritten in the careful script Sarah used when she wanted to say something important. "Marcus, I know you'll probably never forgive me, and I don't blame you. What I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know that every lie I told Derek about our marriage was just that, a lie. I told him you were controlling because it made the affair seem justified. I told him you were cold and distant because it made my betrayal feel acceptable. The truth is that you were a wonderful husband who worked hard to build a life for us. Yes, you worked long hours, and yes, we grew apart, but that was as much my fault as yours. I should have talked to you instead of seeking attention elsewhere. I don't expect you to take me back. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that when Derek pressured me to take money from our accounts and disappear with him, I couldn't do it. Not because I was afraid of getting caught, but because despite everything I'd done wrong, I still loved you too much to destroy you completely. I'm moving in with my sister in California. I'm going to get counseling and try to figure out how I became someone capable of hurting the person I loved most. Maybe someday, years from now, we can be friends again. I hope so. I'm sorry for everything. Sarah. I read the letter 3 times before looking up at David. "The divorce still goes through," I said finally, "but I want to modify the settlement terms." "How so?" "I want to give her half of everything, just like we originally planned when we thought we'd grow old together." David looked surprised. "Marcus, you don't have to do that. Given the circumstances, you could probably keep most of the assets." "I know, but the woman who betrayed me wasn't really my wife. My wife was the woman who refused to rob me blind when given the chance." 6 months later, the divorce was final. Derek Montgomery and his co-conspirators were convicted and sentenced to federal prison. Sarah moved to California and started fresh with her half of our assets. As for me, I learned something important about revenge. The most satisfying kind isn't about destroying someone who hurt you. It's about refusing to let their actions destroy who you are. I kept the house, got the promotion I'd worked so hard for, and eventually started dating again. Not because I was trying to get back at Sarah, but because I was finally ready to trust someone new with my heart. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not fighting harder to save my marriage. The answer is no. You can't save something that was built on lies and deception, but you can choose how you respond when everything falls apart. I chose to respond with calculated justice rather than blind rage. I chose to uncover the truth rather than live in denial. And ultimately, I chose forgiveness over bitterness, not because Sarah deserved it, but because I deserved to be free from the anger that was eating me alive. The surprise I left between those sheets wasn't just the evidence of their affair. It was proof that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's betrayal turn you into someone you don't recognize. Sarah and Derek thought they were playing me for a fool. Instead, they played themselves. And in the end, justice served itself. No elaborate schemes required. 2 years later, I'm engaged to Jennifer, an attorney I met through work who makes me laugh every day and never once made me wonder where she was or what she was doing. We're planning a small wedding, and I'm finally building the life I thought I had before, but never actually did. Sometimes the best surprise you can give yourself is the truth, even when it hurts. This story shows how betrayal can either destroy you or teach you what you're really made of. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's actions define who you become. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more real-life stories about love, betrayal, and justice. And remember, the truth always comes out eventually. Thanks for watching.